Good day, everyone. I am Joshua L. Chan, and we are the team Law of Attraction. Welcome, teachers and students. And today, we will report about feminist ethics. So first, what is feminist ethics? Okay, so before that, first, what is feminist ethics? So, feminist ethics is a diverse and growing body of philosophical work, initially based in the recognition of the most canonical accounts of morally neglected, distorted, trivialized women's moral perspective. So, in short, feminist ethic is seek to have a perspective and ethical ways of women. So, for their rights, fighting for the rights of women. And of course, that seems to women are against and neglected their standards in the society. So, according to Lindman 2005, the feminist ethics aims to understand, criticize, and correct how gender affects or operates within moral beliefs and practices. So it understands the women and other genders to be treated equally fair, and of course to criticize whether their doings is whether right or wrong. So the goal also of feminist ethics is to create equal ethics of or moral theory that generates non-sexist moral operations, principles, policies, and practices. And it tackles also to the gender equality, the equality of, in the society and the rights of every one of us. So we want human to achieve something to inspire other because of our own values and beliefs or perspective in life. The equality of everyone is what we are fighting for in terms of rights, gender equality, and moral practices, and of course, of our ethical standards. And now let's proceed to the classification of feminist ethics. So it has two classifications. The first one is the voice of justice, and the second one is the voice of care. So why is it voice of justice? Because it tends to have a equality and equal rights of every woman. And women empowerment is one of the focus of feminist ethics. Women want to achieve greater things in their life, to aim and fight for their rights. So it is the only way that to resolve for them the inequality for them to have a better justice in the society. And because of justice, it presents and looks how gender is left out of mainstream of ethical conditions or considerations. And the second one is the voice of care. Women want to be recognized and care to every people and to be with them. So care-focused feminism regards women's capacity for care. So as a human of human strength, which can and should be thought and to be expected of men and as well as women. So also it is feminization of care works that identify and to have a special obligations of interpersonal relationship. So that's why they call it voice of care, because it cares not just for their fellow women but also to the other people that that they want to feel care about, and they want to feel important in the society and not labeling everyone.
Good day everyone, I am Najera and I'll be continuing the discussion regarding feminist ethics, and I'll be tackling the proponents and the opponents of the feminist ethics. So first proponent is we have Nell Nothings. A little background about Nell Nothings is that she is a American feminist, philosopher, educator, and author, and one of her famous works are entitled Carrying a Feminine Approach to Ethics and Moral Education, as well as Women and People. So, according to Naungayan, she argued that there is a difference in the way men and women relate to others. Both men and women have different ethics in their various lives. In addition to that, she also stated that both men and women have a different perceptions of what is right and what is wrong to women. Just like for example, what is right for a woman might be wrong for a man, and what is right for a man might be wrong for a woman. Since they have a different techniques on how they relate to others, they have a different interpretations and approach on how they will act to a certain situation that is happening to their lives. And since they have a different ethics in their various lives, they could have a different beliefs on a certain situations. They have a different values and so on. She also argued that both women and women are capable of moral reasoning, although women tend to consider feelings when making a moral decision. So, meaning women tend to be a rational thinkers than men, since they consider feelings before making a decision. Just like for example, women tend to think all the possible consequences that might happen in a certain decisions that they will make. And in addition to that, Naungayan also posited that men see evil things as a rule-breaking event, whereas for women, evil things is an opportunity to hurt anyone, to induce pain, and to make humans suffer. So by that, men more like see evil things as a thrill or as a rule-breaking event, just like for example, in a relationship, for general people or general public, it is forbidden to enter in a third party if you are in a relationship. But for men, see it as a rule-breaking event. That's why there is a third party that is happening in a relationship. And for women, see that third party as an opportunity to hurt or induce pain to someone. So in conclusion to the statement of Naungayan, although men and women think differently or perceive things differently or have an approach to certain things differently, women are more likely to be rational and considerate in making things and in making decisions. So our next proponent of feminist ethics is Carol Galingan, and a little background about her is that she is an American feminist, developmental psychologist best known for his research about the development of girls and women. She also worked and believed that women tend to develop morality in stages, and these stages are pre-conventional, conventional, and post-conventional. And the pre-conventional stage, it focuses on the self-interest or the survival of a person. Second is the conventional, in which prioritizes selfishness and caring about others. And post-conventional, which refers to the final stage, and woman emphasizes taking responsibility for the consequences of their choices and gaining control of their own lives. In addition to that, Carol Galingan is also a pioneer in the field of gender difference psychology, which argues that sexes tend to think differently, particularly when it comes to moral problems. Just like Naungayan, where she stated that men and women have a different approach on a certain situations that is happening around them. So just like what Carol Galingan argued, In the different voice of women lies the truth of an ethic of care, the tie between relationships and responsibility, and the origins of aggression in the failure of connect. By the statement of Carol Gilingan, for her, women are pure and honest enough in providing care and are unbiased in terms of their relationships and responsibility. She also argues that the differences that are happening between men and women are product of social influences and gender conditioning, and emphasizes that women's way of thinking are often undervalued compared to men rather, which is true since in our society, especially in our history, women are underappreciated and undervalued, especially with their rights. Women's rights are deprived and they are undervalued where male supremacy dominated. So to prove that women have the right to be valued, she made her own research in which she found out that women place a stronger emphasis on caring and moral decision making. So just like nowadays, women are more considerate in terms of making a decisions. They tend to consider everything before coming up to a decision and an approach to a certain situation. So after the proponents, next is the opponents of the feminist ethics. So first is Immanuel Kant. A little background about Immanuel Kant is that he is a German philosopher during the Enlightenment era in the 18th century. His comprehensive and systemic work in epistemology, which is the theory of knowledge, ethics, and aesthetics, greatly influenced all the subsequent philosophy, especially the various schools of Kantianism and idealism. So why does Immanuel Kant become an opponent in feminist ethics? Immanuel Kant himself is not into a feminist ethics, but he became a target of feminist criticism because of his misogyny and variety of noxious, distasteful comments about women, which can be seen on some researches made as Kant as the opponent of feminist ethics. Aside from that, he became the target of feminist criticism because of his denigrating remarks about women, which can be found throughout his writings, although the majority can be found in his two works, which is entitled The 1964 Observations on the Feeling of the Beautiful and Sublime and the Lectures on the Anthropology from a Pragmatic Point of View. Immanuel Kant was also regarded with Descartes as the philosopher chiefly responsible for providing modern Western philosophy, which a picture of reason that has been employed in a variety of ways oppressive to women. Aside from that, Immanuel Kant claims that feminism proceeds from absolute and universal principles which are unduly prioritized over consideration of the material context, informing embodied experiences, particularities, and relationships. Also claim that inaccurately separates capacities for rationality and capacities for emotion, and that it wrongly describes the latter as morally uninformative or worthless, most likely because of their traditional association with women or femininity, in which Immanuel Kant regarded women as weak, fearful, and guided by their inclination, in which women cannot act autonomously or think for themselves. So in short, women can't stand alone without men for Immanuel Kant, and women needs a competent guidance of men. So this criticism to women by Immanuel Kant brought the majority of the feminists to complain and criticize both his theoretical and practical philosophy.
Greetings! In this part of our report, we will be talking about the criticisms about feminist ethics. Feminist ethics do not allow for the natural tendencies of men. They do to men exactly what they claim was wrongly done to women for centuries. Feminists contradict themselves by relinquishing truth claims in their own writings. Gender-free morality may be impossible according to neo-noddings. Traditional philosophers believed that women were inferior to men and that female goddesses were involved in silence, obedience, and service. These female roles can be shaped into an ethic of care according to many women philosophers. In doing so, ethics becomes gender-based, and the ethics of care would not be applicable to those who are not of the female gender. There are not many criticisms as compared to other movements or theories that the feminist theory received, so here are some based on our research. First, we have Jeremiah Hovenwoekin, and according to him, feminism without philosophy is a polemic. Polemic is usually a term which means a strong or verbal or written statement that implies an attack on someone or something. So, this article talks about the problem about the role of academic philosophy for the feminist movement, and it argues to the professionalization of feminism is detrimental to the stated goal of the feminist movement, which is basically to procure women's rights and liberties and to reassess the oppressive treatment of women by different social institutions. This article of Jeremiah stands against the professionalization of feminism, especially within the sphere of academic philosophy. According to him, given the idea that the stated goal of feminism is to effect social political changes, he argues that in order for feminism to achieve this, it ought to cease its incessant attempt to form a foundation or explanation or even a theory of the hows and the whys of such oppression came about. That is, if feminism were to reap the rewards of socio-political upheaval, then feminists should stop their fantastic theorizing and start to bring their advocacies into the proper forums. So, this opposition met by the feminist movement is more on the social political stand of the feminist movement and the different agencies or like parts of the government, because they feel like the feminist movement is very advancing and that it is going beyond its goals, or it is going beyond its boundaries, which is just to procure women's rights and liberties and to reassess the oppressive treatment of women by the different government institutions and the different institutions of the society. Speaking of political, let us proceed to the second. So this one is happened on the United States of America. So here it goes. After the great success of women's liberation movement, a backlash against the second wave of feminism began during the 1970s. We're talking about here is the volatile political climate surrounding the effort to ratify the Equal Rights Amendment, or the ERA. The proposition of ERA brought to the surface another split between the feminists and other ranks. The proponents, the feminist movement, advocated for a common humanity between men and women, while the opponents thought that the ERA would erase the natural differences between sexes and thus strip women for certain necessary protections. Another supporting event that happened for this opposition is the strong anti-feminist presence of the New Right. This New Right stands against the ERA, the Attack on Equal Rights Amendment. So this New Right was filed by Phyllis Schlafly, and a campaign was also executed, which was named the Stop ERA campaign, and it's really opposing the feminist movement in the United States during that time. So another event that led up to the opposition of the women's liberation movement was the election of Ronald Reagan. President Ronald Reagan was one of the strong and vocal opposers of the feminist movements in general. It was followed up by the rise of Jerry Falwell's Moral Majority Organization. This organization was promoted, and it traditionally implies that the United States must stick to the traditional family values, and was in strong opposition to many feminist issues such as the ERA and homosexuality. Another unexpected opposition met by the feminist theory was the media. According to our research, that the media declared that the feminism is dead. In addition to this, their description of the 1980s was a post-feminist period. In their narrative, they treated feminism as a movement of the past rather than a still evolving force. So basically, the media during this time was counting out feminism movement, and as they stated here, they declared that feminism is dead. So these are some of the criticisms that feminist theory received in the history.
We have three sorts of benefits in feminist ethics. The first one is the women have gained equality. Feminism simply means believing that men and women have equality. For the past years, women are seen to be weaker and lesser people. They will not be able to sustain what the community needs to fit them in. They will not be able to be a good leader, to fit in this kind of role, especially in tribes, in government. They will not be able to be a leader because women have less power before. So in the past years, women are usually seen in the house doing the dishes, laundry, cooking, and other household chores. They aren't allowed to go out. They aren't able to conclude themselves in being an official in barangay, in being a president, being a leader, being a prime minister. Women before are being degraded. They are not allowed to establish themselves to be in this kind of position or to be more higher in the seeing of the community. That's why feminism is such an important thing for us women and men. Feminism is simply believing that men and women are equal. They have their own capabilities. Everyone should be treated gratefully and equally in all aspects of the community. Both men and women have the capabilities to do everything. They must be fulfill the gender role of being a man, of being a woman. It is our choice to be empowered. Men can also perform the duty of being a woman. He can also provide the needs of the family, but it is not a pressure for a man to fulfill a role of being a woman. It is a choice of every individual. In some countries now, women are being treated correctly. They have the capabilities to be equal in the society. The Prime Minister of New Zealand is a woman. For her, there is no hindrance to be a powerful leader. Jacinda Ardern proves that women can also perform and fulfill a man's duty. It is a proof that women can also break the barrier of being degraded by men in the past years and decades. The second benefit is the women are able to demand their rights. Here in the Philippines, we have the law for women. It is the Republic Act of 97, which is the Magna Carta of women. It eliminates the discrimination of women against discrimination and promotes the right of every Filipino woman. It equality what we needed, especially in wages or salary, in education system, in owning properties. The last benefit is to establish the political, economic, personal, and social equality of sexes. To be specific, as an example, are the crew of some establishments, food establishments like Jollibee, McDo, and so many other food stalls. Men and women can be a cashier, a crew, a waiter, or a waitress. They can be neither what they want. It is an equality in food establishments. Women nowadays are able to perform the duty of being a senator, president, barangay kagawad, chairman. No discriminations attached because a man can also fulfill a woman's role, and a woman can also fulfill a man's role. It is a law that abides every woman and man being treated equally in all aspects of the society, community. As an individual, for me, as a woman, it is my choice to do what men can do. It is not a discrimination between the two gender, because as a person, it is your choice. For me now, I am less vulnerable because some men are actually gentlemen and respectful. Actually, they can protect you in harmful situations. As an individual, it is your choice to perform the duty of every man. It is your own capabilities to be in a situation where you haven't been before. Nowadays, everyone will be treated equally.
And now let's go to the application of feminist ethics within issues.
Why environmental ethics is one of the feminist issues. The relationship between woman and nature has long been established in Western society as something fundamental and confirming of each other's inferiority. Understanding our relationship with nature via the hierarchical system that underpin our civilization may lead us to the conclusion that the environment requires a distinct ideological role in society in order for us to genuinely respect it. Relationship between nature and woman. We see constant association between women and the natural environment in art, language, and the various tools we use to understand the world. Consider Gaia, the goddess of the soil, the ethereal, senseless being linked with trees, water, or mountains in mythology. Whilst men are ennobled, women are sexualized. Women and nature share a sexualization language that confirms their inferiority and rejects them from the realm of civilization. Why make the connection between woman and nature in the first place? Nature has long been thought to be the polar opposite of reason in a culture built on binaries and dualism. Men are defined by their rationality, whereas women are defined by their irrationality and closeness to nature. Nature is considered as everything that reason isn't, everything that is uncivilized or uncultured. But this doesn't always mean inferiority. As a result, anything that is labeled as being connected to nature is done so in a derogatory manner. According to philosopher Val Plumwood, to be defined as nature in this context is to be defined as passive, as non-agent and non-subject, as the environment or invisible background conditions against which the foreground achievement of reason or culture take place a resource empty of its own purposes or meaning, and hence available to be annexed for the purposes of those supposed to be identified with reason or intellect, and to be conceived and molded in relation to these purposes. Constructing a connection between women and nature function to justify acts of exploitation and domination. Women are routinely undervalued and mistreated as the background of masculine activity. In the Western world, the dominant attitude regarding the environment show a marked disrespect for women, people of color, and everything related with nature. Disproportionate disadvantages. It's not just an ideological term that disrespect towards nature translates as a disrespect towards women. Failure to protect the environment results in disproportionate disadvantages for particular socio-economic groups, including women. This is due in part to the fact that climate change has a greater impact on poorer places. Women account for 70% of those living below the poverty line, and women are responsible for working in and with environment. Women account for more than half of the world's agricultural workers, providing more than 60% of food in the global south. In order to achieve positive climate action, women must be included in environmental policy. Women have unique perspective on climate change and important knowledge of the natural world, which can help us improve our environmental policies. Participation of women in climate action is empowering. It gives women decision-making power and redefines the relationship with the environment on their terms.
Ethics is an act should be done in morally controversial situations. So, marriage, reproduction, and abortion can be given as instances to the feminist ethics relevant areas of applied ethics. Since the very first century, the Church has affirmed that every procured abortion is a moral evil. And abortion remains illegal in the Philippines under all circumstances. There's an act criminalized by Philippine law, Articles number 256, 258, and 259 of the Revised Penal Code of the Philippines. It has mandated an imprisonment for women who undergo abortion, as well as any person who assists in the procedure. In Article 258, further impose a higher prison term on the woman or her parents if the abortion is undertaken. But in some countries like US, Denmark, Austria, and some European countries, it is legal for unmarried women. Women would be excluded because it is illegal to have sex outside. In some pro-choice advocates, they affirm that abortion is an important option for all women, though most may never need it. I read some article of Susan Sherwin in the entitled Abortion Though a Feminist Ethic Lens. She explains that pregnancy causes many women to get sick, sometimes sick enough that they can't continue with jobs, school, or housework. So not every woman is able to put her job, career, and studies on hold. Women who feel too young, too old, or who are unable to maintain lasting relationship may recognize that they will not be able to care properly for a child at this time, because some women do not have the resources available to care for a child. So I can say that, so in order for a woman to have the full freedom to pursue education, career, control her own life, and a loving relationship, she must be in charge of her own sexuality and her own reproduction. Though feminism entered the abortion debate in the late 60s with the goal of equalizing the roles of men and women in society. However, we now understand that equality does not mean sameness. So, women have a unique voice, equal but separate from that of men. So, simply because of their femininity. This push for equality without the emphasis of her unique perspective. It allowed society to devalue a woman who made the choice to be a mother. Humans have the right to life. So therefore, fetuses have the right to life. Of course, women have the right to control their own bodies. But the right to life overrides the right of a woman to control her own body. So therefore, abortion in all circumstances is wrong. That's all, and thank you.
So next is the continuation about the discussion of the application of the feminist ethics within issues regarding business and media ethics. So according to a research from Bureau for Employers Activities of the International Labor Organization, women in leadership bring better business performance. This report shows gender diversity improves business outcomes and makes it easier to attract talent. The report also looks at the reasons behind the continuing gender diversity deficits and makes recommendations for breaking the cycle of seeing men the more dominant gender when it comes to business field. With the woman on the driver's seat, almost 57% of the 13,000 enterprises in 70 countries said it was easier to attract and retain talent. More than 54% said they saw improvements in creativity, innovation, and openness, and similar proportion said effective gender inclusivity enhanced their company's reputation, while almost 37% felt it enabled them to be more effectively gauge customer sentiment. And to support this information, the report also found out at the national level, an increase in male employment is positively associated with GDP growth. The finding is based on an analysis of data from 186 countries for the period starting from 1991 to 2017. In the country of India, women have been challenging stereotypes, increasingly taking up leadership roles, acquiring entrepreneurial positions, and in the fields of entertainment, sports, and politics. India has witnessed a steady rise in the number of rural women leaders from 5% in 1992 to 40% in 2000. Today, there are many brands, leaders, and influencers voicing their opinions about ongoing crimes and gender-based violations in the society, creating an active awareness about women empowerment in the country. In fact, the ongoing social debates about tax exemptions for sanitary napkins or period leave in workplaces exemplify increasing discussions about modern feminism. And yet, while there is hope for increased modern feminism on the social and legal front, there is a long way to go in achieving the same openness in the business world. Given the scenario, the only way to lay a solid foundation for a brighter future for the generations of women to come is by continued efforts and challenging dominant stereotypes. Through the ages, we have been touched and inspired by success stories of brilliant women leaders, from Queen Elizabeth to Rani Lakshmibai, from Captain Lakshmi Sehgal to Sheryl Sandberg. So, in conclusion, women have been dominating the world, especially in the field of business industry. Women in the modern era are not restricted anymore to stay in their homes unlike before, for women can lead the world through their own capabilities and immaculate knowledge.
Feminist ethics influence our body figures, hormones, and our bodies. And this includes measures of the gender, sexuality, and the gender identity. The feminist intellectual and divorce recuperate of taking examination persuaded by feminists. Morals bear more problem in an early and by conceiving.
It is not the aim of feminist ethics for men to lose their rights and for women to be superior to men. Yet there's a lot of misconception, and some think or find feminism a word and a movement for a man-hating, or as in anti-men, or it is just for women's rights. And a lot of people that I've read online are still mad and against the feminist, or to feminism in general, because of that anti-men concept they perceive. Also, many people fear that feminism will mean that men will eventually lose out of power, influence, authority, control, and economic opportunities. But no, feminist ethics itself aims to understand, criticize, and correct how gender operates within our moral beliefs and practices. That's according to K. Marc F. Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy 2019. It is for both sides. It really is about the belief that men and women should have equal rights and opportunities. It is the theory of the political, economic, and social equality of the sexes. This statement that it's not the aim of feminist ethics for men to lose their rights and for women to be superior to men. In short, feminist ethics means equal rights, not women's supremacy. It wasn't made to degrade or attack men. It is for affirming that women are as valuable, as capable as men. So neither should oppress nor dominate the other, because both are deserving of justice rather than discrimination or privilege. So the point here is that both men and women should be treated as equals, balanced and fair. Next.
And also character-based approach, and it helps basic more like emotions and feelings, make it easy to break any moral codes when the person cares and doing survival difficulty. And last, the feminist ethics is that built on the belief of that traditional ethical, and it's focused to understand, criticize, and correct.
Next. It shouldn't serve to resolve conflicts in certain moral issues or dilemmas. By this statement, I mean feminist ethics is ideally to change ethics for the better by improving ethical, theorizing, and offering better approaches to issues, including those involving gender. So, it is not that very universal to use. Feminist ethics can serve to resolve conflicts in certain moral issues or dilemmas, like, for example, the trolley dilemma or the classic lifeboat dilemma, where there are 10 spaces in the lifeboat, but there are 11 passengers in the sinking ship, and a decision must be made as who to stay behind. In this scenario, for me, you cannot use this theory or this volume as feminist ethics to make your decision or to solve it. To choose, you cannot apply this gender equality and equity. Another example, the divorce, suicide, gambling, abortion, euthanasia, and other moral or ethical issues in the society. That arguing if it is right or wrong to do, like the suicide, for example, if I kill myself or somebody kill themselves, you probably cannot apply the equality, the fairness, balance concept of feminist ethics to solve the problem. The debate about the rightness or wrongness of that action, of that suicide, you know what I mean? feel like I'm losing my point here, but that's the conflict I am pointing out. We cannot really identify and solve what's right or wrong, ethical or unethical, moral or immoral, if you rely on this principle, this feminist ethics theory, to judge certain issues. I may be wrong about this, but yeah, this is my perspective. And I think the more applicable here, this kind of dilemma. And in most scenarios where the ethical absolutism and relativism. Yes. Or that's my evaluation. I mean, yeah, that's how I evaluate it. But we can use feminist ethics or feminism to solve and improve society by giving the idea and attention as a movement to end sexism, sexist exploitation, oppression, and also to end patriarchy. And what I mean by sexism is it is prejudice, discrimination, and harm against people on the basis of sex or gender. That defines by books. So at the end, it can really solve issues too, because it uses the conflict approach to examine the reinforcement of gender roles and inequalities, a fight for the rights, liberation, and to have a voice. So feminist ethics is ethically harmless and isn't a form of revenge. Well, first and foremost, I don't think that there's an ethical theory or concept that is a form for revenge. Right? And yes, this feminist ethics is totally harmless, because it is purely about behaving and achieving the justice, freedom, respect, and equality for all as a person. It analyzes gender stratification through the intersection of gender, race, and class. Feminist ethics or value. Feminism is not a movement to attack men. It is not to attack men's right or degrade them or harm them, and for women to overpower men, like what I said earlier. It really is not about fighting domination at all. The thing is, the goal of feminism, or this feminist ethics, is to challenge the systematic inequalities women face on a daily basis. And the ideas of modern feminism is not only for advocating women's rights, but also for the issues that men face too. Like women are paid less, sexually harassed, objectified, violence, and so many. Men are not really permitted to show emotion, aren't always seen as low parents, and never seem to win costly court battles due to gender stereotypes. The assumption and common practice that women and girls look after the home and the family is stubborn and very real stereotype. It not only discriminates against women, but limits men's participation and connection within the family and society. This limitation have broad-ranging and significant effects for them and for their children. A concept to undervalue fathers and overburden mothers. So, my point about this statement is a concept that I want to tell about this statement that feminist ethics is ethically harmless and isn't a form of revenge, because For me, it is about listening and understanding both sides to have this equal and balanced treatment we want. We have to start truly and openly and sincerely listening to be right. Lastly, the principle of moral responsibility is reflected in the voices and visions of women. What I mean by moral responsibility is that it is the status of morally deserving praise, blame, reward, or punishment for an act or omission, in accordance with one's moral obligations. Deciding what counts as morally obligatory is a principal concern of ethics. And in feminist ethics, of course, it is reflected in the voices and visions of women. According to psychologist Carol Gilligan, is frequently associated with the care-focused approach, argue that traditional responsibilities led women to develop a language of care and men develop a language of justice. And as women develop morally, that they move from an overemphasis on self to an overemphasis on others. And finally, the proper emphasis on self in relation to others. And that is feminist ethics, giving and achieving the language of equity. And equity leads to equality, and that is the whole concept of it. And for last, I want to add up some quote. Emma once said that it is not the word feminism that is important. It is the idea and the vision behind it.
Last but not the least, let's go to the questions to the feminist ethics.
Question number 1. Why is it that ethics of care considered as feminist approach to ethics that recognized as influential and socially significant? Ethics of care is equated to feminist ethics because we can consider women as a model of nurture. When women gave birth, their main responsibility and obligation is to take care for their infants, to feed them through breast milk, to meet their basic needs, and to alleviate their sufferings when they are sick. Hence, these feminine values such as gentleness, sympathy, and genuine caring has been influential and plays its vital function not only in the field of nursing and medicine but also in education and counseling. And it reveals how women view and play an equal role in determining the moral character of a society. Question number 2. If the goal of feminist ethics is to eliminate oppression, why still women do the majority of unpaid roles like domestic duties and child care inside the home? We have this notion that if women stay at home, they don't have jobs. The truth is they have work but they don't get paid. In some other countries like Nepal, women carried out 85% of daily unpaid care work. As a result, most women's jobs are time-consuming and engaged in household care works, with no time for any leisure and recreational activities. We can clearly say that even feminist ethics exists, still there are some society devaluing and underestimating the role of women because it became part of their custom and tradition, and it seems normal for them that household works comes naturally to women. Question number 3. How can we prevent sexist stereotype and limiting women's capability if we link them to the trait of caring that sometimes fails to value career as they ought? Educating ourselves and enlightening our perspective is a good instrument for us to simply eradicate sexist stereotype. We must also appreciate and respect others' differences and do not set any assumptions and labels to each and everyone. Yes, we can link women in the field of caring, but we must be diverse and be the avenue to give them the chance what they can do more and what they can offer in our society because equality matters.
Feminist ethics understands, criticizes, and corrects both genders. In this case, is it true that both genders get equality equally, or does it just revolve around the women? We all know that both genders have equal rights, but sometimes we use these rights to hurt or criticize others. Examples: men tend to abuse his wife if the wife doesn't want to have sex with him. In the opposite, women use their rights to criticize some men. But the real question is it true that both genders get equality equally? No, because there are a lot of factors that equality is not emerging. Let us use education as our example. The inequality of education among girls because of, first, poverty. 70% out of 1 billion people is extremely poor, and 62 million girls do not attend primary and secondary school. Second, child marriage. Every 2 seconds, a girl becomes a bride. Third, the traditional status in law. In our cultural beliefs, especially here in the Philippines, they say that girls do not need high education because they will end up being housewives after all. Men too benefit from gender inequality because they face gender-specific problems such as shorter life expectancies, poor health, lower educational attainment, and rigid gender norms. Therefore, feminist ethics does not only revolve in women, but also in men, because they view the similarity of men and women. The last question, is there morality in feminist ethics? Feminist justice ethics is a feminist moral philosophy that aims to connect with the eventually changed conventional, normative, and ethical approaches. Feminist justice ethics, like other forms of feminist ethics, examines how gender is left out of conventional ethical considerations. Therefore, feminist ethics has morality, since they are founded on the premise that conventional ethical theorizing has undervalued and or overlooked women's moral experience, which is predominantly male-dominated. They have chosen to reimagine ethics through a systemic feminist method to transform it.
That's it for today, and thank you for watching. I hope you learned something new today.